All right, everyone. So today we're gonna talk about COVID-19. So COVID-19 pandemic and the vaccine stigmas are surrounding it. So our thesis is since March 2020, the world has been negatively impacted. It's a human, economic, and social crisis. Society as a whole has taken a plummet from the adversarial long-term effects of COVID-19. The coronavirus pandemic and the vaccine stigma surrounding it has become a social justice issue due to longer quarantine duration or isolation, inadequate supplies, financial loss, and overburden. So today we're gonna talk about the travel restrictions, country lockdowns, how the COVID affects sports, mental and health effects on social jobs, price increase on goods and services, and stock shortage. So, definition of COVID-19. According to the CDC, coronavirus are large family of virus. Some coronaviruses causes cold-like illness in people, while others cause illness in certain types of animals such as cattle, camels, and bats. Some coronavirus such as can and feline coronavirus infect only animals and do not infect people. CDC. COVID-19 is particularly interesting in itself because the world has lived through it, yet many still fail to understand what it truly is. Specifically for COVID-19, it's a disease caused by virus named SARS-CoV-2. COVID-19 is associated with symptoms such as headache, sore throat, cough, and fever. Can be often feel similar to cold or like a flu. So the confirmed cases in the world, according to WHO, there have been a total of 262,178,403 confirmed cases of COVID across the board. 5,215,744 confirmed to deaths. Case numbers divided by region, they are 97,016,540 in the Americans. There is 87,265,519 in Europe, and 44,057,262 in Southeast Asia, and there is 60,700,093,616 in Eastern Mediterranean. Also, there is 10 million in West Pacific, 6 million in Africa. In the US, there have been 48.1 million confirmed cases. So this state, Michigan, leads the country in recent cases, averaging more than 8,000 new cases a day, which is kind of a lot. Safety measures such as masks, social distancing, and hand washing were put into place to slow the spread. On the right side, you can see the graph. Like the quality is not really good, but yeah, you can see it there. So lockdown restrictions. So in April 2020, about half of the world was put under quarantine, meaning that they were essentially unable to leave their homes in hope of stopping the spread. This quarantine consisted of more than 3.9 billion people in 90 countries. For students, schools have closed approximately 63 countries, affecting about 47% of the students' population. The shutdown continued to occur into 2021 by Wikipedia, which is like everything was put online through Zoom, like last year. I don't know how was it over here, but in my old school, everything was online, and it was kind of annoying. So we didn't learn that much, So also affect the grocery stores and restaurants, movie theaters, or bowling alleys. Also, the shopping centers were closed too. So now I'm gonna talk about the flight restrictions and about Slovakia. So due to the pandemic, there has also been implementation of flight restrictions. For example, in my home country, Slovakia, they recently went back into lockdown due to rising numbers, there are strict flight restrictions. Currently, those who are vaccinated are able to travel into countries as long as they provide their proper medical documentation. For those who are unvaccinated, they are required to be quarantined for 40 days upon entering to countries and testing negative for the virus in the PCR test. So my country right now, Slovakia, is locked down again because of the new variant, what is coming from Africa or whatever. So everything is locked down again, and people they're driving crazy right now. So it's a little bit crazy back home. Now.
So I'm going to talk about sports seasons being postponed. On January 20th, COVID was spreading through America. From there on out, athletes started to test positive ever since then, which became concerning to every league commissioner who started to wonder what the future would entail. One by one, players started to test positive for COVID, even though they were self-isolating at home. It wasn't enough to stop the spread throughout the leagues. And according to the European Journal of Sport and Society, for some athletes, to delay a major events or leagues could be a serious barrier to career progression, or a route towards contract renegotiation, or even an early driver towards involuntary retirement. And COVID shut down these leagues. Players were left stranded. For the top players, it might have been not such a big deal because they already sealed their contracts. However, players fighting for a contract or still having something to prove to be on the team, or even the players fighting back from injuries, this lockdown could put these type of players in jeopardy. So the shutdown, ending everyone's season abruptly, leading to players' involuntary retirement, and then maintenance that goes into your body and the amount of off-season training that takes place. And then with gyms closed due to COVID lockdown, that also restricts off-season training. With the training and gyms being closed, leads to more injuries because you're not as active, and the older you get, the more stiff you can become. No fans allowed in attendance. The NBA announced that starting in late July for a 22-team restart, which would be in Orlando at Walt Disney World. And according to the book Bubble Ball by Ben Gulliver, due to the health concerns, the league invited only a handful of reporters who were required to sacrifice medical privacy and live in a hotel room for more than 3 months and submit to daily coronavirus testing in hopes of keeping the bubble from bursting. And then the National Hockey League agreed to play in front of no fans as well, and the Stanley Cup was actually won in an empty arena. So much revenue was lost with no fans in attendance, and the players obviously feed off the crowd's energy. So there being no fans definitely created its challenges. For college teams, there were strict rules implemented, and college teams faced some strict protocols following the startups of their seasons. Strict COVID testing was in full effect, and as testing kits became more readily available, the more testing was being enforced. And some players, especially the seniors, were robbed of their chance to compete in the national tournaments, causing a big whirlwind of emotion for certain players. But however, the seniors were granted another year of eligibility. However, it would look quite different. And according to the article Sports Medicine, daily health checks, university masks on all sidelines, and testing to be implemented for all athletic activities, including preseason, regular season, and postseason. And these rules allowed for low risk spread sports to compete. And actually, after that, the vaccine requirements for sport teams are not as strict as you might think. The NFL, NHL, NBA, and MLB do not force vaccine mandates, but do have strict testing protocols if you're not vaccinated, and people if you're in close contact, you get tested. And however, Canada has a more strict vaccine mandate. Pretty much everyone has to be vaccinated to play in any sport activity. Teachers have resigned after vaccine mandate. Healthcare workers are being forced to the vaccine, and people believe it's their body, so it's their choice to get vaccinated or not. And according to the article of Internal Medicine, we should recognize that mandates increase vaccination rates. And after Houston Methodist Hospital required its workers to be vaccinated, 99.5% received the vaccine, with only few resigning rather than getting vaccinated. and some agencies require the vaccine to be required, and if you want to stay employed, people end up getting the vaccine.
COVID had many long-term effects on the mental health aspect of individuals. As said by Samantha Brooks and Rebecca Webster with The Lancet, most studies reported negative psychological effects including post-traumatic stress symptoms, confusion, and anger. Stressors included longer quarantine duration, infection fears, frustration, boredom, inadequate supplies, and financial loss. Another quote stated by various researchers at the CDC said that younger adults, racial ethnic minorities, essential workers, and unpaid adult caregivers reported having experienced disproportionately worse mental health outcomes, increased substance use, and elevated suicidal ideation. With COVID, there was a lot of effects on the individual social life, as well as being isolated away from contact and physical touch can be hard on the mental aspect of your mind and character development and personality. Not being able to see your friends or families for holidays, birthdays, funerals, even school ceremonies like graduation or Student of the Month awards. There were stressors like boredom and anger, which caused increased levels of depression, anxiety, increased substance disorder, pick up bad drinking habits when you're sitting at home all day. Sometimes individuals, teens or adults, would turn to psychedelic drugs to increase their entertainment levels and lessen their boredom, as well as sleep patterns changing, causing insomnia amongst individuals. COVID also had an underlying effect on the education system and students' learning overall. Yuki Terada at Editopia stated, "Instruction has been uneven during the pandemic, as some students have been able to participate fully in online learning, while others have faced obstacles that have hindered their learning progress." A second quote from associates at McKinsey & Company stated, "High schoolers have become more likely to drop out, and high school seniors, especially those from low-income families, are less likely to go on to post-secondary education." COVID had the most effect on the class of 2020 seniors, as I personally was one of them. I seen firsthand in March, we shut down. March 12th was actually my last day of school. It was a Thursday. We were told we were coming back on Monday, and that just never happened. We lost out on prom, graduation, senior skip day, senior prank day, activities like that. Things went to remote learning, so some schools fully just shut down, and they were like, all right, if you're passing your classes, you're good for the rest of the year. If not, we have Zoom meetings in place for remote learning. But that became an issue because low-income families did not have Wi-Fi access at home, or sometimes even access to a laptop or computer to even get onto the schoolwork. But the rich neighborhood incomes were able to provide students with laptops to take home for the whole academic year to complete their schoolwork. There also was the issue of the teacher not being right there in front of you, or having other students to help you when you needed answers for an assignment, or maybe just more clarification. And a lot of low-income students don't have that motivational push at home to actually maintain good grades and complete schoolwork, especially while sitting at home all day, essentially doing nothing. So there was an increased dropout rate because of this, and less high school seniors were graduating from the past year just because of remote learning and the fact that they were unable to keep up. Some students also may have needed to stay at home and babysit, siblings while their parents go to work at their essential jobs, or if the parents lost their jobs, the students might have been asked to find an essential job to get funds provided for the family during this pandemic. Alongside with the fact that if families don't have money to pay rent, afford food, buy new clothing, more than likely they're not going to have money set aside for their seniors to go to college when it comes time. Especially within the last year, if they did have that money set aside, they might have already had to spend it because of the financial strain that COVID-19 has caused. And then these are Ian's slides, but he's not here, so I'm just going to read them for him. COVID-19 had effect on jobs and unemployment as well. The unemployment rate skyrocketed, and many Americans were without jobs and could not find jobs because buildings temporarily or permanently shut down. Families were stretching money for food or not eating at all. It was reported that young people were left unemployed by the pandemic in far greater numbers than adults, with the effects being felt worse in lower income countries. The equivalent of 255 million full-time jobs were lost around the world due to the pandemic. According to the International Labor Organization, that's a lot of jobs lost in just, a year time span. And this also has created food price increase for product on food, general merchandise, even gas prices increased. In the start of COVID, everything was pretty cheap because you couldn't go anywhere, you really couldn't leave your house, so gas prices were low, food was low. Once we slowly started to open back up, everything obviously increased as more people were going out and starting to travel again and trying to find jobs. But with that being said, there's also millions of stock cargo ships in the ocean right now full of supplies that we cannot get access to because there are no workers, there's no dock workers, there's no store workers to stock the shelves, there's nobody there to actually get these supplies there for us. So we're experiencing stock shortages for items such as toilet paper, as we've seen in the beginning of COVID-19. Things like masks are hard to find, certain foods you can't find, like hot Cheetos. I don't know, there's like a nationwide shortage on hot Cheetos right now. And then questions, I guess that was it.
So what did you guys do at home during the mandated quarantine?
Collected unemployment.
Yes, sir. And then how many of you guys know someone who got COVID before the vaccine? I'm sure pretty lot, yeah. Figured. And then how many of you guys were affected by the travel restrictions? Dang. And how many of you got a sports season canceled due to COVID? And then how many of you guys still got a senior prom / graduation? Nice. All right, thank you.
In conclusion, the coronavirus pandemic and the vaccine stigma surrounding it has become a social justice issue due to the longer quarantine durations or isolation, inadequate supplies, financial loss, and boredom. Ever since March 11, 2020, the world has been different. Society has taken a plummet from the adversarial long effects of COVID-19, from travel restrictions and country lockdowns to sports teams postponing their seasons. Then when sports resumed, there were no fans allowed in attendance, as well as the price increase on goods and services and stock shortages that occurred, on top of the vaccine mandates and job shortages. There is no question that COVID-19 has left a negative impact on our nation. However, we have a new normal, which everyone is trying to adjust to. Thank you.
Forgot about that.
But